Hi, everybody, and welcome to our next session of the Women in Leadership series. My name is Jody Ashley. I am the Director of Client Services with Ledra Consulting. Maybe this is your first time joining us, or maybe you have been with us throughout the series. Over the past couple of months, we've had the great privilege of interviewing many top leaders throughout the country who just happen to be women. And we have heard from all different backgrounds. We've talked to women from all different industries, and each of them comes to us with a variety of experiences. And today I'm really excited to introduce to you Jennifer Wimer. Jennifer is the president and the CEO of Kairos Health Systems. So welcome, Jennifer.
Good morning, afternoon rather, thank you.
That's okay, I understand it. When you, sometimes when you're coming up from a long weekend, it's hard to remember what day is today. I understand that. Jennifer, before we get into the real meat of the interview, can you tell our listeners a little bit about your company and what it is that you do?
Sure. Kairos Health Systems was started back in the mid-90s, 95, because managed care started to come to nursing homes and home health agencies. And there was a group that decided they did not each want to find an expert to negotiate those contracts. So they made the company to do it for them. And very quickly, more nursing homes joined and more groups joined, and it grew very quickly from there. I came in 2002. I'm a respiratory therapist by trade, but did management for a home respiratory and home IV company, and had done contracting for them as well. So I came on kind of for a break and a change in my life and started working for this company. And very quickly, my boss decided he wanted to leave, and I wasn't sure I liked who they were talking about selecting as my new boss. So I decided I should probably try and go for the position, and I did, and I got it. So I was pleased with that. It was a whole new area, new things I had to learn, new opportunities, but basically we negotiate insurance contracts for nursing homes and support them in maintaining and improving their quality so that they can get these good contracts. And so we're kind of consultants, but we do some clinical, some operational, and definitely the financial side with the contracts to get them better money and better revenue.
That's great, and very important job, I will add to that, very important. So Jennifer, when I was growing up, I was raised by two wonderful parents, but that was back in, well, I don't want to date myself, but it was many years ago. And I was raised that I'm a female, so most likely I'm just going to be married and have children. And at the time they said I could go to secretarial school, but if I wanted further education, that was up to me. And then when I joined the workforce with my children, I was from that generation of half stayed home and half went to work. And there was definitely some butting of the heads. So my question to you is, can you share with me or our listeners what your personal story was and how you got to where you are today as a leader?
Well, I was raised by parents to be the best homemaker possible. I can sew, I cook, I do all of that, but I also had to do all the yard work. I had to help my father paint and repair, and we remodeled the basement, and I was taught all those pieces as well. It was always kind of assumed that I would become a mother homemaker, but my father also wanted all of us, I have 3 siblings, to go to college. So we got exposed to all different kinds of things, music, athletics, dance, golf, all kinds of things. So we got exposed to a lot of things, and my father always just said, do the best you can. That's all I'm asking. And my mom my mom was not a sewer, but my grandmothers were, and so I got taught all that. I made my own clothing, so all of that. But then when I went to college, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do because I had all these things going around in my head and wasn't sure. So I went to college for a year, still did not know what I wanted to do. So I quit, went to work at a bank and took some finance classes. And so that was sort of started the road to where I got. But then I had an accident when I was 20, a severe accident. And they didn't know if I would ever walk again. And they said I would never run, but I can walk, and I walk, hike, do all that kinds of stuff. And I can run a little bit, but it took a long time to get back to work, to get back into things. But I did discover I really liked healthcare. My hospital room was right outside the nurses' station. I could hear all kinds of stuff going on, and I really found it all very interesting. So my doctor actually recommended that I try respiratory school because it has science, it has healthcare, it has people, it has equipment, it has computers. It had all kinds of stuff, and he thought I would find it very interesting. And I did, and I enjoyed it very much. But every job I had, my bosses would say, I'd like you to try this for me. And so I would do that. And I learned a lot of things I didn't like, learned a lot of things I did like, but I kept getting promoted and moved into positions for leadership and trying new things.
So can you remember a time when maybe you were in the hospital that you had that kind of epiphany of, oh my goodness, this is definitely an industry that I need to pursue?
Not so much in the hospital. When I started back to work at the bank, then I was sort of bored and discovered that I'm not going to like continuing this. So that was when I started. Unfortunately, my doctor was one of my mentors, and he just really kept encouraging me, teaching me. I had trouble walking for a while, and he said, you have to reteach yourself how to walk correctly. You have to really work at this. It's not something that's going to come easy. And so when he recommended that I might want to try, he actually set up for me to go and observe in the hospital for a day and see what I thought. And I found it very interesting. And so he actually helped get me into the school. And so if you have people who support you, I would say take advantage of them, thank them profusely, but take advantage of what they're offering because it can be so helpful.
It can literally change your life, right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jennifer, if we're honest with one another, not just as women, but as leaders, there's, I'm sure, been many times throughout your career that you have felt vulnerable. And I'm wondering if you could share with us, you know, what those moments were and perhaps how you got through them.
I think often I felt like I was not believed or trusted, or my word was not taken seriously sometimes. But my father is a chemist and a scientist and inventor, and his questions were always, how would you do this? How else could you do this to make it better? And so I kind of always used that philosophy to make sure I had my facts, make sure I had done some research, and if I wanted to really be taken seriously, to present from that manner of having the facts and having the information so that you were believable and you could be heard. So that was pretty much what I always did there. When my one boss came to me, and our region, our district was merging with Philadelphia, and we knew we were smaller, we were going to Philadelphia, it was going to be challenging, and he came to me and said, I wondered if you wanted to be a branch manager in Delaware. And I had never done anything like that. I was doing the respiratory therapy side, and I said, do I need to be a branch manager in Delaware? And he said, I think it would be a really good idea. And so I took that position, learned a lot, had the position for 2 years, and then they called me up and said, we want you to be region clinical manager for the whole Mid-Atlantic. And I was like, yes, because I was okay at being a branch manager, but was not a big fan of the whole thing. So when they offered that to me, I took that very quickly. So that was a little bit of a risk to do that job when I knew nothing about it. And I was commuting to Delaware and just trying to be successful at that new job with all the new pieces tied to it.
Great. I can relate to all of that. How large is your staff right now?
We only have 5 individuals, but we cover nursing homes in 5 states.
Okay.
But I make sure that I hire really good people who like to work and who enjoy their work. That's one of the secrets, I think, is finding the people who actually really enjoy their work. Those are the ones that will stay. Those are the ones that will give you the most. And always show your appreciation of what they do, because it's those individuals who make you who you are as a leader.
I agree. And that leads me into my next question is, I was given your name and told that you were a very vibrant leader. And so how did you develop your confidence in yourself, and how would you describe your leadership style?
I think I look for things in people and try and bring those out. I remember we had a situation in Philadelphia. The drivers were not doing a great job. They had a lot to remember. They had DOT, they had FDA regulations, they had all kinds of regulations because they dealt with liquid oxygen and oxygen cylinders, and they had to be very careful. And my job was always to audit and monitor that. And there were always challenges. So I started bringing them in to early morning classes, because you couldn't interfere with their day too much because you didn't want to put more stress on them. So I brought in lottery tickets and I would start teaching. And whenever they got the right answer, they got a lottery ticket. And they were, just cheap lottery tickets, but they could have been substantial winnings if they were lucky. But they started listening and paying attention and participating. Well, then there was an accident with one of the trucks on the interstate, and the DOT actually called our office and asked for our supervisor, who had been part of the training, to go and help them, because they were kind of at a loss. They had not had an accident that was this risky. And I was very proud of him, and I made sure that they all knew how proud I was of their response and their how well they did in that situation.
That's great. Yeah, it doesn't, it's amazing how people just want to hear how much they're just appreciated.
Yes.
Right.
And they include them in the solutions and in the answers, because they do the job every day. I'm also a Lean Six Sigma certified trainer. And that's one of the big things, is involve the people who do the work, because they're the ones that have answers that the leaders may not even think about because they don't touch it.
That's great. So I meant to ask you at the beginning of the interview, but I'll ask you now. Do you have a role model?
I have a couple role models. My mother always stood by me no matter what. When I went through my accident, she had to take care of me. And so I get choked up about that one.
I understand completely.
Just her support of me was always so important. And my grandmother was a nurse, and she worked 7 days a week often. She then would come home, and neighbors would call and ask for her help, giving shots, doing other things. So she was another role model. And then my dad, because my dad he's still alive.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
So, he's actually in one of our nursing homes in an apartment, but he would always make sure we were included, and always ask the question, is that the best way? Is that the best way?
I love that.
He taught us a lot. And so those 3, I think, are my best.
I think that's awesome. And again, we don't realize this, our kids are listening, you know what I mean? Our kids are listening, or, and I understand, but that, you made me choked up. So, so what would you say is the best advice you've ever received? And what advice would you give to young women today that are maybe just starting out a career?
I would say be sure and listen, because if you don't listen, you don't know what you need to respond to and how you need to respond. So be sure and listen carefully. And then when you are responding or delivering something or being a part of something, think about what you want to accomplish. Think about the goal of that moment, of that situation, and make sure what you're delivering does meet that goal. And I think if you're doing that, you should be always successful, because you're thinking about where are you going, where are you taking the company, what are you trying to accomplish, and making sure you have what you need to do that. And then don't second guess yourself. I have some friends who continuously try and redo something because they're not sure if it's right. They're not sure. And you can waste so much time doing that. And you get so stressed doing that. Do the best you can, make sure you have the goal in mind, and then deliver it, and deliver it with confidence.
I think that's great advice. Well, Jennifer, you've been great. I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to get to meet you, and it's been a real pleasure. I'm sure that our listeners will be very interested in what you have to say. So, thank you again for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you again, maybe in person one of these days.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye.